What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets here on FTN Network, listening on iTunes and Spotify. Always appreciate your time. Chris Meaney here, hanging out with you solo. It is time for me to start getting some guests and some fresh takes and different takes. Look for that next week, but I'll be here with you solo. I'm going to recap the action from last night. We'll have some picks against the spread, a crazy teaser, a little parlay. We got some NFL props as well. And we will start with last night's action, a big Chicago Bears W. I didn't see that coming, not going to lie. We had some Brian Robinson Jr. props, which crushed a lot of my parlays. So that didn't go well. It's just, he's really kind of game script dependent, isn't he? You know, he's catching a couple passes out of the backfield, but Chicago was up early and they didn't give up that lead. Washington abandoned the run game. Sam Howell is on pace to get sacked, I think, like 90 times, which would be an NFL record. Washington looking good in Philadelphia last week just goes to show teams getting up for divisional opponents, playing divisional opponents pretty tight. Washington, the Commanders are who we thought they were. It's funny you say that. The Bears are who we thought they were. We let them off the hook. The Commanders are who we thought they are or were. They haven't looked good really all year. I don't know what's going on with Jahan Dotson. He's not getting any targets. It was a whole lot of Logan Thomas yesterday. We are not seeing enough volume for Mr. Jahan Dotson, and it's getting pretty close to moving on from him. We've talked about him as a guy that you can't put in your starting lineups until we see something positive. We just haven't seen it as of yet, and we're here heading into week 6 next week. So it'll be really tough to hold on to him. I have a couple shares as well, and I may have to move on. We'll see what happens. We'll talk some waiver wire stuff here next week on this show. But the big takeaway, I mean, Justin Fields again, 2 straight games for Justin Fields. We talked yesterday on the show about the career game that he had last week, you know, the 80% completion rate, over 300 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. And, you know, he did it again yesterday. He looked really good, some anticipation throws. And how about DJ Moore? I mean, DJ Moore just gets crapped on all the time. He's not a good wide receiver. He's overrated. He's never really played with great quarterbacks, and it was looking like it would be another miserable year for DJ Moore. And we talked yesterday on this show about our love for DJ Moore, how he was up against Emmanuel Forbes, who had allowed the most yards per route covered in the NFL. And what did we see yesterday? We saw 230 yards from DJ Moore, not 1, not 2, but 3 receiving touchdowns. He's got 5 in the season. He's 2 away from matching his career high. He's on pace for 1,800 receiving yards. 1,800 receiving yards, which would shatter his career high from 2020 when he had roughly 1,100 receiving yards. Heading into this season, we talked about him, and we said he had the 7th most receiving yards in the NFL over the last 5 years, but he just didn't have the touchdowns like the other guys on that list. Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. You know, now he's fine in the end zone. He's not a sell high candidate. We love the explosiveness. We hit the receiving yard prop in the opening drive pretty easily, had his catch prop as well. Burned on Terry McLaurin. It's just kind of been that way for NFL props this year. It just really has. Like Terry McLaurin, 1 catch away, you know, from his catch prop. And a couple weeks ago, we had Zay Flowers. We needed 1 more yard from Zay Flowers. You know, 1 more yard from Zay Jones. It's just, it's trust the process. You know, struggling certainly with props. Hopefully, you can rebound here. The sides have been solid. You know, positive on the sides. We're tweeting out picks, moneyline picks. Follow our FTN Bets account on Twitter. Myself at Chris Meaney. We're giving those picks every Wednesday. Myself, Jeff Ratcliffe, Tyler Lochner, who was on the Bears last night, Adam Pfeiffer, and of course, Mike Randall, who had a big week last week as well. We have the NFL betting show on our FTN Network YouTube page. Myself, Randall, and Abby Labar every single Wednesday. Look for that as well. It's been a very positive start to the season in terms of picking sides. I got some sides here for you in a few moments, but some props as well. But I just wanted to talk and give some love to DJ Moore, right? Because he doesn't get enough of it. Everybody's always crapping on Justin Fields too. He's no good. He can't make throws. He can't throw deep down the field. It's the same nonsense I heard with Josh Allen before they got Stephon Diggs. It's the same garbage I heard about Jalen Hurts before they got A.J. Brown. Coaching is absolutely key, and I'm not completely sold on the coaching in Buffalo. Eberflus is a defensive guy, but good stuff for Chicago to rattle off that win and look good on offense. Do some things defensively as well. a week after scoring a lot of points and giving up the lead against the Broncos. So it's two good games for Justin Fields. Too early to count this guy out as a passing quarterback, and it'll be interesting to see what the Bears do if they have the first overall pick. Do they take Caleb Williams, which I think, it is an upgrade for sure over Justin Fields, trade Fields to a suitor, get a bunch of picks, or maybe they decide that they're going to roll with Justin Fields and that they're going to maybe trade out of that one spot. But I would say if they're rolling with Justin Fields, they're rattling off a couple wins here in the second half of the season. So we'll get to some picks and some props. If some people in here do want to say what up to the crew as per usual, smash that like button. We've had some new subscribers lately, and I really do appreciate that. Rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff would do me and us a solid here at FTN Network. Mark Carr in the house. I made the mistake of picking up Claypool in a couple dynasty leagues a couple years ago. Hopefully this trade works out even a little. Yes, Chicago traded Chase Claypool this morning to the Miami Dolphins, and the Bears traded a 32nd overall pick for Chase Claypool last year. Come on. We all knew that was awful at the time. I love Chase Claypool. Canadian boy. I'm rooting for him. There's been some on the field issues in terms of his drive and his passion and his effort. I would have just hung up the phone if Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins called me about a player on my roster. And I understand moving on from Chase Claypool, this guy's going to make things happen. I'm not saying he's ever going to be worthy of I don't think he'll ever even be worthy of a flex play in fantasy, but you got to love the play calling in Miami. Guys in motion, setting records. I think 40 guys in motion last week or the week before, just setting NFL records. And Mike McDaniel's just McDaniel is a hell of a play caller. I could see Claypool with some end arounds and some gadget plays. I could see him being used as a tight end because they don't really have a great tight end. He is their tallest wide receiver, lanky guy. They really only throw the football to Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But hey, it's a good buy low here. Didn't cost him a whole lot, and it's just another mistake by the Chicago Bears organization. I saw a report this morning, I think it was from Adam Schefter, about how Chicago had two calls from, Pittsburgh had two calls about Chase Claypool, one from the Bears and one from the Packers. And they decided to take the pick from the Bears, and then the Packers with their pick, which they traded, turned out to be Reed. So Chicago could have got a nice young wide receiver to pair up with DJ Moore. Instead, they have a fifth or a sixth round or whatever it is. Lutesta, welcome in. Happy Friday, dude. I went up against DJ Moore in 2 of my 3 leagues, skipping ahead to week 6. I'm not going to sit here and pat my own back, but man, I have a lot of DJ Moore, and I had a lot of Justin Fields. I have them together on a ton of best ball squads and 3 or 4 of my fantasy leagues. And I was feeling pretty good about last night. Combined 80 points in one of my leagues with those two. Crushed my Fields and DJ prop. Yes, I did 275 instead of the 300 for Fields. Yeah, like I said, we had that one pretty easily. Pat Mayo called a Samuel TD prop. Mayo's a good guy, friend of the show. He does a great job of calling some touchdown props. And Deesh, welcome in. I was thinking about you last night, and I'm so glad you did it. Let's go. Right? You had a tough decision. You were talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown, who didn't practice again today, is very questionable to suit up this weekend. Detroit 10-point favorites. They're going to get Jameson Williams back, and I don't expect him to be full go. If you missed yesterday's show, we talked about some start and some sits. We said stash Jameson Williams. You waited this long, but let's see this play out. And even if Amon-Ra doesn't suit up, I could see maybe a flex play, but I still don't think he's going to be full go. I could see him playing maybe 35% of the snaps. Missed a lot of football, was hurt to start the season. Obviously, the suspension is done now, but he's missed a lot of football over the past couple of years. I think he's going to be very boom or bust this year in fantasy football. But I think he's a heck of a player. And if he wasn't hurt, he was a guy that I wanted the Eagles to draft. And I remember doing the live NFL draft show, and I had some Jameson ready to go with my guy, George. We thought it was going to happen, but the Eagles made that trade for AJ Brown, and I couldn't be happier about that. But good for you, DJ Moore. A game changer, and now he's had fantastic So this is another one, right? We were on the wrong side of that. So we only got the DJ Moore reception and receiving yard prop. Of course, we weren't even close to Brian Robinson Jr., one away from Terry. And then we had Meaney for over 2.5 catches. He missed him a couple times. It was a throw on the first play of the game. he overthrew him, and Meaney was wide open. He did, and that's part of the growing pains too, right, Reese? And you know, I take fully responsibility for that pick because even though it's 2.5, you think you certainly should be able to get it with no Claypool the past couple of games, and more usage, running more routes, playing more snaps. But Fields is still learning as a passer, and we take the highs and the lows. And I think overall, if you're a Bears fan, you got to be pretty happy with what you've seen over the past couple of weeks. And I guarantee you, we won't get DJ Moore at 48.5 receiving yards again. It's been that way for all 5 of his games, and he's got 3 100-yard games and a 200-yard game there as well. I love it. Happy Thanksgiving to my Canadian family out there. I don't believe we'll have a show on Monday. I'm going to take the day and see some family on Canadian Thanksgiving, which is Monday. And we'll be back on Tuesday to do some waiver wire stuff. But I'm always tweeting about sports. It's the busiest time to be a sports fan and the funnest. In October, we have our free NHL draft guide, which is launched over at ftnfantasy.com. Baseball playoffs, we're going to revisit the baseball bracket today. We had a perfect 4-0 start to the playoffs with a couple dogs in there as well, and 4 sweeps, which I didn't expect. The Phillies over Miami, it's not a surprise. We were on the Twins on this, but I thought the Jays would give them a go. It just wasn't the case. And I'm not super shocked about Texas. They're feeling themselves at the moment. They're playing really good ball. We talked about the couple series that they had against Seattle and getting some guys healthy in their lineup. Josh Young is a player that I really, really like and hitting in the 8 spot. And he had a great game too. And the Rays just, they do this. They have good regular seasons, and they tend to disappoint into the postseason. And the other one was Arizona. I mean, the Diamondbacks are probably the best kept secret in baseball. The NL is loaded. The NL's got some really good teams. Now, tough spot against the Dodgers, but Zach Gallen is your number 2. Come on. The Diamondbacks are good, and Milwaukee always chokes too. Like, people are surprised about Milwaukee. They got no offense. They can't score, right? They got good chucking and good bullpen, but they can't score. And the offense doesn't scare me at all. It's been that way for years in Milwaukee. But happy Thanksgiving to you and all the Canadian crew out there as well. Yes, you guys always having friendly conversations back and forth. Lou, tough man to go up against a guy, DJ Moore, right off the hop in Fields. Mikey Boy G does have a question. We'll answer any of your questions, start or sit questions here on the show. Still filtering through some news items. It does sound like Cooper Kupp is going to play. No idea about Jonathan Taylor. The Colts are not talking about it. That's something that, may come up after the show, may come up early Sunday morning. I'm not sure. We can address those 2 players. If you have both of those players, I would be playing them. Even on pitch counts, Jonathan Taylor came out. He says, I feel healthy. And so this is a Colts thing. I think the comment is out there for the public to see that he is healthy. He's saying that he's healthy. Whether he wants to play or not, I just don't know. It's a guessing game. But here we go with the first starter sit question. And if you're watching the replay of the show, on our YouTube page or listening on iTunes, you can always hop on over, leave the comment in the comment section. I will circle back on these videos, reach out on X at Chris Meaney, or slide in the DMs, FTN or Mean Streets FTN at gmail.com. So first one here, full point PPR, Dave Montgomery, Kyron Williams in flex, already starting CMC and Jacobs. I'm going to lean here with Montgomery. According to our projections and Jeff Ratcliffe, he does have Williams ahead of Dave Montgomery, but I really like Dave Montgomery. We're going to get into him in a little bit more. I have the rushing yard prop that I like for him. And, since we're on it, we can actually just address it, and we'll address it again in a couple minutes here. But for Dave Montgomery, he's got 69 rushing attempts, which ranks 4th in the NFL, and he missed 1 game. He's got the 5 touchdowns, 32 carries last week, coming off a game where he missed due to an injury and a short week. They were up 2 scores, and you'd think they'd give, the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, give him some touches, or Craig Reynolds, keep Dave Montgomery fresh. It just wasn't the case at all. They gave him all those touches to run out the clock. We said it on this show multiple times. We'll say it again. He is playing the Jamal Williams role from last year. Jamal led the NFL in red zone rushing attempts and rushing touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs is playing the DeAndre Swift role from last year in Detroit, not this year. The Eagles have no issues giving DeAndre Swift carries between the tackles. That wasn't the case last year. They're 10-point favorites, Detroit at home, where Jared Goff has been spectacular at home over the past couple years. A remarkable 26-3 touchdown to interception ratio at home last year, more yards per attempt, more passing yards, better completion percentage. And this Carolina team, they're 26th in total DVOA defense. They're dead last, 32nd in DVOA rush defense, according to our tools led by Aaron Schatz over at FTN Bets, FTNFantasy.com. They are allowing 119 rushing yards per game to running backs. That is the third most in football. Detroit, when you look at the DVOA metrics, they're fifth in total DVOA defense, fourth against the run, eighth against the pass. Total DVOA offense, they are fourth in pass, sixth in rush. So they're one of just a couple teams inside the top 10 in both total DVOA offense and defense. And Carolina has just been absolutely pathetic moving the ball. Bryce Young, 4.9 yards per attempt. That's 33rd in the NFL. Only Joe Burrow is lower. Unbelievable what has happened with Joe Burrow and the Bengals here as we head into week 5. But 167 passing yards per game. Bryce Young, only Anthony Richardson is lower. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Carolina offensively, 26th in total DVOA, 22nd pass, 26th rushing as well. So I expect Detroit to win this game. Even without Amon-Ra St. Brown, we could see that number come down a touch. I think they'll win by double digits. I don't expect Carolina to be able to move the ball. They can't stop the run. Detroit has a good offensive line, and Detroit is not giving up any rushing yards either. The fewest rushing yards, I think the second fewest rushing yards, definitely the second fewest rushing yards. No, let's do this again. The fewest rushing yards and the second lowest in terms of yards per carry. I may have mixed that up. I definitely did something there. But first or second, they're not giving up any rushing yards. Miles Sanders wasn't healthy last week. Sounds like he's going to go this week. I don't expect Carolina to really be able to move the ball. So they're going to lean on David Montgomery. And on the other side of that, I like to be correct in some of the statistics here. So I'll actually give you the actual numbers here. But ultimately, the Eagles are a good team against the run. And I'm going to talk up Matthew Stafford a little bit later on in this show. This is a bad spot for the Eagles. They have struggled against some quarterbacks and not great quarterbacks either. So I think that we'll see a lot of chucking from Matthew Stafford, who entered the week with the most passing attempts, 300-yard games already. Sam Howell has passed him, in terms of passing attempts and passing yards now, but he entered the week at the top in both of those categories. And he looks really good at the moment. So ultimately, when you look at rushing yards allowed this season, we see Detroit at 60.8 rushing yards allowed. So that's part of my thought process here, Mikey, is that they're going to be able to stop the run, stop Carolina, score some points. Jared Goff in the dome, lean on the ground game, lean on David Montgomery, 5 touchdowns already here in 3 games. That is where I'm going. Even in a full PPR league where we could see Kyron catch a couple passes where Montgomery may finish with 0. May have 1 or 2. I think he caught a couple last week, but it's possible he may finish with 0. And as for the Eagles, 63 rushing yards allowed per game on the season. This is a defense that can stop the run. They've been like that for the past few years. They've just in the trenches, offensive line play, defensive line play. It's always pretty strong there for Philadelphia. So we'll carry on. If you guys have any more questions, by all means, leave them there and we'll address them here before the end of the show. But since we're on Montgomery and some of the props, this is what I'm thinking here this weekend. So Dave Montgomery there over 70.5 rushing yards at -110. We just kind of broke into some of our thoughts there for that. So I won't bore you and repeating myself, which is something I tend to do pretty often. So you just tell me to shut up. We'll get on to the next play, which is Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson here at over 37.5 receiving yards at -110. Wilson's first game in the NFL, 2 catches on 4 targets, 19 yards. Week number 2, caught all 3 of his targets for 56 yards. Week number 3, only had 2 targets, but he caught them both for 86 receiving yards. And then last week, in a tough spot against the Niners, he had 7 targets and he caught all 7 of them for 76 yards. And he had 2 receiving touchdowns. So this is a guy here that has 16 targets and 14 receptions in really just like 3 games, because he wasn't a big part of the offense. He wasn't out there running a ton of routes and playing a lot of snaps. He played over 70% of the snaps last week. He's got a spot here against the Bengals, who, a lot has been made about Joe Burrow and the offense, and Joe Burrow ranks near the bottom in every single category, right? Yards per attempt, passing yards. He's got like a couple rushing yards, and that's how I know he's not fully healthy, because even though he's not a big runner, he had over 200 rushing yards last year. So he's certainly struggling. He's in the pocket. But Michael Wilson is a guy that is absolutely trending up. His ownership was 2% on Monday when we talked about him on this show. It's now 43% in Yahoo. It's jumped up 41%, but it's still not high enough. I'm starting this guy in leagues. I am starting him, for example, over George Pickens. Potentially that is a mistake, as Pickens is really the only guy in Pittsburgh, but I'm not feeling this Pittsburgh offense. Almost called them the Pirates. I'm not feeling the Steelers offense at all. I know that Freiermuth is doubtful and Deontay Johnson's not going to play. They can't get anything moving on the ground game. Kenny Pickett's going to play. He's not 100% healthy. I would rather take Michael Wilson, and Joshua Dobbs looks pretty good at the moment. No, he can't buy himself Dobbs jersey in Arizona. I don't know if anybody saw that video. He tried to buy a custom jersey of himself and just wasn't available. Tough go. But Michael Wilson is absolutely trending up here. So the over, and I'm not seeing a catch prop just yet on Michael Wilson. And I'm going to be interested, especially if it's 3.5. Let me just check the prop shop. It's your friend, guys. A link inside the description of this video. It's like Google search. It's a free tool. You can find it all you want. Or you just type in, let's see, Michael Wilson. And what I like about this is look at the difference in books. So this bet is still minus 110 over at Bet365, 37.5. 37.5 at minus 115 at BetMGM and DraftKings. Caesars has minus 125 for the same number. FanDuel has minus 114 for over 38.5. And then PointsBet has 40.5 at minus 110. So this prop shop free tool over at ftnbets.com will save you a lot of time and save you some cash in your pocket as well. It is one of my favorite tools. He's plus 260 over at FanDuel to score a touchdown as well. I think that's a sneaky little bet. Oh yeah, George, I didn't give you any touchdown props. Maybe we'll have a couple towards the end of the show. All good there. But over 37.5 for Michael Wilson, and then get him in your starting lineups. If you don't feel great about starting him, just pick him up and stash him, right? Pick him up and stash him. He was one of our favorite deep league draft plays, and, you know, somebody to buy low in Dynasty, you know, because the quarterback situation will be much better next year. And I do believe that it's very, very possible Caleb Williams is the guy there in Arizona, even though they are playing good football. I think Cincinnati will squeak this one out, but Michael Wilson over 37.5. A.J. Brown here at 5.5 receptions. You know, ever since A.J. Brown had that little freak out on the sidelines with Jalen Hurts, much was made of that. And he said it had nothing to do with, you know, getting the ball and getting targets. And, you know, he may be lying about that because ever since that happened, 2 games, he has 27 targets and 18 grabs, over 300 yards. He scored 2 touchdowns last week. He has 43 targets, which is the 5th most in the NFL. Using our free air yards tool over at ftnfantasy.com, you will see he is 2nd in the NFL in air yards. He is 3rd in air yard percentage at 47%, a healthy number, and he is 2nd in target percentage at 35%. He's just 2nd behind Devontae Adams. So A.J. Brown is getting all the looks. I know a lot of people are talking about Dallas Goedert getting some looks, and I'm sure, you know, the squeaky wheel, that may happen for him this week. But what I see from A.J. Brown or from Jalen Hurts is he really throws the football to 2 guys. It's A.J. Brown and it's Devontae Smith. I also like Devontae Smith, but I didn't want to be a complete homer. He's at 4.5 catches. It's around minus 135. But going with the better number here in A.J. Brown. We talked about Montgomery already. Matthew Stafford here at 269.5 passing yards, taking the over on that one as well. I've been very impressed with Matthew Stafford, as I mentioned, first before week 5 started. So let's just forget about last night for a second, Commanders fans. First in passing attempts in the NFL, 166. 2nd in passing yards, 300-yard games already. The Eagles last year, number 1 in pass DVOA defense, according to Football Outsiders, now FTN. They were number 1. This year with Sean Desai, new defensive coordinator, I'm seeing some issues. I'm seeing some issues in the secondary and in the middle of the field. They are struggling against bunch formations and when there's guys in motion, and the Rams do both of those things a lot and very well. This dates back to, I mean, week 1, there was a lot of bunch formations and they struggled, you know, with Kendrick Bourne, but this dates back to last year, especially in the Super Bowl. We saw Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney have the exact same play on opposite sides of the field and guys in motion. They both scored touchdowns. They got lost last week with Curtis Samuel in motion with the end around touchdown as well. Mac Jones, what has he shown us this year, guys? Not a whole lot. Well, he had 316 passing yards against this Eagles secondary. Kirk Cousins, great quarterback, good weapons, 364 passing yards. They got pressure on Baker Mayfield, who struggled in that game. But Sam Howell last week against the Eagles, had 290 passing yards as well, was looking off some receivers. I thought he made some really nice throws, but guys were just wide open in the middle of the field. Puka Nacua can't be stopped. Nobody's stopping this guy. Who can stop him? Nobody. Nobody said he's setting NFL records. And it is confirmed that Cooper Kupp will return for this game as well. The Eagles have struggled against tight ends. Week 1, Hunter Henry popped off. TJ Hawkinson popped off. There was 3 total touchdowns from the tight ends. Higbee is in a good spot this week as well. I think this is a really tough matchup for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think they'll be able to stop the ground game. So Matthew Stafford over 269.5 passing yards. That is minus 114 over at FanDuel. Not seeing any Cooper Kupp props. Won't do it. You know, there could be a setback there or something like that. But as I mentioned, if I had him in my fantasy league, I do have a share or 2 of him in a couple of dynasty leagues. I'm going to play him. I view him as at least a wide receiver too, right? He doesn't need to play 75% of the snaps to get double-digit fantasy points. For example, we saw Christian Watson last week play roughly 40% of the snaps and have double-digit fantasy points and score a touchdown. So, you know, we could see this with certain players, and clearly the ceiling is much higher with Mr. Kupp than it is for Watson, who, by the way, is questionable again. And that is, a Monday Night Football game? They're going down the road again with Christian Watson. If he pops off again, he may just be one of the biggest sell-high candidates because he has dealt with a bunch of injuries. He scores touchdowns. I think he's got 8 in his last 9 games or roughly that. He scores touchdowns, make things happen, but he hasn't shown me that he can stay on the field just yet. Wan'Dale Robinson, this number has changed big time. So I'll still talk about it. It's minus 135, minus 140 now in certain spots. There's another couple catch props that I like that are slightly juiced if you wanted to do some sort of 2-leg parlay. In the bet tracker, I have Breece Hall at over 1.5 catches and Bijan Robinson at over 3.5 catches, and both of those are like minus 140 at Bet365. If you put them into a parlay, it's plus 189. So I would maybe put this one in there with maybe Breece Hall. The trading wheels are off Breece Hall. It's a really good matchup against the Denver Broncos. And he's had a couple catches this season as well. So I would expect, I don't want to be too bullish on Breece Hall and say he's going to get like 17 plus opportunities, but I'd be pretty surprised if he didn't have, 13 to 15 carries and a couple targets. But as for Wan'Dale Robinson, I get it. It's the Giants, right? And the Giants are a bloody mess. The offensive line is atrocious. Miami opened up as 9-point favorites. They're like 13.5 point favorites here now. They're going to roll all over them. We'll get to a Chon here in a second, but Wan'Dale Robinson over 3.5 catches, 11 targets and 9 grabs in his last 2 games, his first 2 games of the season. And we have him in our projections for 7 targets and 4.5 grabs. He doesn't have a high ceiling. He's not like a DJ Moore. The high ADOT on the team belongs to Darius Slayton. There's no time for Daniel Jones to get the ball out. Wan'Dale Robinson has a very small ADOT, and it's like an easy completion there for Daniel Jones. And, last year there were some decent games from him as well. I would stay away from the receiving yard prop. It's 30.5. I could see something like, 4 or 5 grabs for like close to 30 yards. Again, he would need to be explosive with the ball in his hands after, but ultimately I do like the over 3.5 catches. And then you see Devon Achane, AC, I don't know what the heck they're calling him these days, but I have heard out of his mouth, it is a Chan. So that is what we're going to roll with. Over 50.5 rushing yards. In fact, I just looked this up because I've been waiting for this prop to pop up for a couple of days. I am extremely interested, right? For one, 2 touchdown favorites at home. And we talked about Mike McDaniel and what he's been doing with the play calling has been phenomenal. I saw 49.5 at FanDuel. So why not take the 49.5 instead of the 50.5? It's one for your yard. I think I would take anything over 57.5. We haven't projected for 65 rushing yards. And I think this number will move up. So we've really seen 2 games from him. 304 rushing yards in the last 2 games, 26 carries. He's got 4 touchdowns over that span. He was getting red zone work over Raheem Mostert last week, which is really, nice to see. So more work, more red zone touches. He's just so explosive. And this guy's got a ton of speed where I hear people all the time when they talk about him before the season started, he's just a gadget guy. He's never going to have like 20 carries. And he doesn't need to. Clearly, he only needs like 7 to 9 touches to rack up 100 yards. Mixed in with the play calling and how quick he is, and the offensive line playing good. And I just saw Armstead like an injury, and I get that, but I'm still in on this pick. The Giants, they've allowed the 4th most rushing yards to running backs. They're 22nd in rush DVOA against the run. 27th in total DVOA. So Achan, who is anywhere from minus 110 to minus, again, Achan is anywhere from minus 125 to minus 175 to find the end zone. I think that they will be up in this game. They're going to be able to pick on that young secondary. We've seen Miami already score 70 points at home. They've just been dominant, right? They're in the shade. They got their feet up, hands behind the head. Tyreek Hill's having all kinds of fun with Tua. They're just having a blast. Meanwhile, the opposing team is on the sidelines sweating it out like George, three-putting for bogey, and the hottest day in the summer, like just sweat dripping. This is a tough spot for the Giants. I really do like Miami, even though it's gone up to 13 to win here by a couple scores. And this is with Saquon returning and helping them out here a little bit, maybe pass protection and helping move the chains just a touch. So I am in on DA. It's what we may just have to call them the rest of the way. So there's the props. We'll recap here because I just saw a few more people pop in here on the show. So we are in on Michael Wilson over 37.5 receiving yards trending up. We are in on AJ Brown over 5.5 receptions with over 20. What did I have here? 24 targets, 27 targets over the last 2 weeks, and third in air yard percentage, second in air yards, and second in target percentage as well. Dave Montgomery over 70.5 rushing yards. Matthew Stafford over 269.5 passing attempts. Wan'Dale Robinson over 3.5 receptions, and Devon Achan, my goodness, over 50.5 rushing yards. And when you're just used to saying a chain for like 5 months, and then all of a sudden it's like it's not a chain, bud. It's a chan. It's like it throws you for a loop for a little bit. Kyle Woods in the house. New York Jets defense seems a little banged up. Still okay with rolling them? Yeah, I'm not sure what your other options were there. I think you had the Colts or somebody else there, but I mean, I am okay with rolling them out. I mean, if you can give me your other options, we could walk through some of those other ones, but they still have, an elite secondary. And, I know Russ has been pretty good, but I like the under in that game. I don't think we'll see a lot of points there. Teabag. I knew a Teabag in high school. I don't know if it's the same dude, but if it is, what up? Wan'Dale Robinson worth a pick? He's got Atwell, Michael Wilson, and MT. Is that Michael Thomas on your bench? Like, I wouldn't drop any of those guys for Robinson. I think Wilson has a higher ceiling. I mean, it's a guy that I like a little bit more in PPR leagues. He's like, again, we talked about that with the picks. It's like a guy that I expect, like, if he's kind of going to live in like the 5 for 50, 5 for 40, 6 for like 50s, things like that. Like, he's not. I don't ever view him as like a guy like we just saw Michael Wilson, right? With the 2 touchdowns and 70 plus yards. Like, I just don't view him that way. So I think Atwell is definitely going to take a bit of a step back with Cooper Kupp. I've been talking about him as a sell high candidate. It's probably the bad time to sell him now, just with Cooper Kupp coming back. But if he were to have like a really good game again and Cooper Kupp played and people saw that, then I would do something like that where maybe I would sell high. But I still think he's got a higher ceiling than Wan'Dale Robinson at the moment. And I really like the Michael Wilson pickup, dude, and Michael Thomas as well. It was a dud game for the Saints last week, and I think the Saints will struggle again this week, in New England against that defense. So he's right. I think it's right to have him on your bench there. So I would keep what you got going on there. Oh, New England is available. I would do that. I would roll with the Pats. Derek Carr doesn't seem to be completely healthy at the moment. I was also looking for Alvin Kamara catch prop as well. I wanted to see what that would be. I thought maybe it'd be a little bit ridiculous after what he did last week. What do we got here? Looks like the props are out. 3.5 at minus 172. 4.5 at minus 105 isn't too bad for Alvin Kamara in that game. And I mean, it's going to go down as an outlier, but Alvin Kamara burst out on the scene with like a couple. What did he have? Like 3 straight 80 catch seasons, at least 2. I know that. 13 catches, 14 targets. He only had 33 yards in those 13 catches. But I mean, 25 opportunities in his first full game this season is a very positive showing. But I think that game is going to be an offensive struggle, and I would lean with New England there, Mr. Woods, on that pick. Okay, so here is what I'm thinking for picks against the spread and for some fun little parlays and some teasers there. Got just a ridiculous 7-point teaser. How many teams are in there? 7? Whew. but I kind of like it. I mean, give me a teaser that you don't like, but we'll start here with the Lions. We talked a little bit about them earlier. Jared Goff, the home and away splits, and them being fifth in total DVOA defense and being fourth in total DVOA offense, and the Lions being able to stop the run, and Carolina 26th in total DVOA offense, and then 26th in total DVOA defense, and dead last against the run, and Montgomery in the offensive line. So this is a tough spot for Bryce Young at 4.9 yards per attempt, and which ranks 33rd in the NFL, and only Anthony Richardson with fewer passing yards per game than Bryce Young. So I'm in on Detroit, even without Amon-Ra, right? I still like the Lions to win by double-digit points here. The San Francisco 49ers, a great primetime matchup with the Niners and with the Cowboys. It's the first time these two teams have played in primetime since the 90s. It's remarkable to me because these two teams have combined for a bunch of Super Bowls. They've met in the playoffs in each of the last 2 years. So it's nice to see them on primetime. And even though Georgia's got Brock Purdy on the cover, I would be sitting Brock Purdy. I like the Niners here to win this football game. I'm not really digging Dallas. Defensively, they're number one in total DVOA. Like, they got some dudes that can play defense. And as you see, I like the under 45. There's all kinds of skilled players everywhere. These two teams played last year in the playoffs, and there were 31 points combined. I think it was a 19-12 final. Brock didn't impress me in that game. Dak had one touchdown and a pick. 2 years ago when these two teams played in the playoffs, Dak had 2 picks and like a 53% completion rate, roughly. Dallas has won some football games to start the season, but week one, they weren't tested offensively. They blew the doors off the Giants thanks to their defense. Who they play in week 2? The Jets, right? Zach Wilson and company. The easy work. Didn't really have to push the pace offensively in that game. When they had to push the pace offensively in Arizona, Dak struggled with turnovers inside the red zone. He has struggled inside the red zone over the past couple of years. He's struggled taking care of the football over the past couple of years. This is going to be a great game. The 3.5, I don't think it'll change too much. I'm in on San Fran winning this game and slowing down Dak and company. I mentioned earlier about the Eagles, how they have struggled against bunch formations. They have struggled against teams that use players in motion, and LA does both of those things often, and they do both of those things very well. So I think if you're looking for an upset, I do have one there at Houston at plus 110. I try to give one little money line upset. It's not a huge one, of course, but the Rams are certainly live dogs, in my opinion. The Eagles offensively, I hear a lot of people talking about them struggling. This has got to be a record for a team that has started the season 4-0, and people are still just like, they don't look any good. They're kind of trash. Like, offensively, they've been okay. They have struggled inside the red zone big time. But when you have a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator to start the season, there are going to be some growing pains. I am seeing the offense improve week in and week out, but I am still seeing those holes defensively. And I think this is a bad matchup. I do believe the Rams will cover here at plus 4.5. I think this is a field goal game. In my own pool and money line plays, I have picked the Eagles to win, but I would not be shocked if the Rams pulled off the win. They've been very competitive to start the season, and a big boost here getting Cooper Kupp. I like the Saints against the Pats. I think this will be a tight game. I don't think we'll see a lot of offense. I took the over, as you see, 39.5. The Saints are a really good defensive squad. Really, really strong. Last year, they were a top 10 defense. I think they went like 10 games in a row with like allowing 20 or fewer points before last week against the Bucks. And New England's got a good defense too. They can get some pressure. Of course, losing Christian Gonzalez for the season is a tough blow, and getting JC Jackson back, who wasn't graded out too well. He was second behind Emmanuel Forbes, who we talked about yesterday, up against DJ Moore, and allowing the second most yards per route run covered for a cornerback. But ultimately, I don't think we'll see a lot of points. And I do trust Derek Carr and the weapons around him, and Michael Thomas and Chris Olave and of Alvin Kamara, to be enough to pull off the victory. Foxborough is a tough place to play, but I will go with the road squad here in the Saints. The Titans on the road. You could have got this on Wednesday's show when we talked about this. They were plus 1.5. They're now favored to win this game. Shaq Leonard is ruled out, who's a big piece of the defensive squad for Indy. And Tennessee, Derrick Henry had a bounce back game from Derrick Henry last week against the Bengals. He ran hard. He threw a passing touchdown. The Titans defense, they can stop the run. And Anthony Richardson, we talked about him, roughly 160 passing yards, is dead last in the NFL. And so this isn't a quarterback that I think I've been impressed with him. You know, he's made some throws. I think Michael Pittman will have a bounce back game. I just don't think he'll be able to run around as much. And if Jonathan Taylor plays, I don't think he'll have a ton of success. And if it's not Taylor, I know that Zach Moss won't have a lot of success running against this defense who allowed the fewest yards per carry. So I'm in on the Titans to win this one on the road. And then the Texans, you know, I've been really impressed with Houston here to start the season. CJ Stroud, this isn't going to be a pat myself on the back sort of thing, but CJ Stroud was a guy that we really liked, and we got the first pick wrong. I really thought that we were going to nail that one. I thought he was going to be the first pick for Carolina, but CJ Stroud has looked great from a fantasy standpoint. He's got 3 straight games of 20-plus fantasy points. Dameon Pierce hasn't been super efficient, but they're starting to get a little bit healthier on the offensive line. And Atlanta, they're frauds. They really are. Like Arthur Smith, I mean... there's not enough time in the day to get into the Falcons. And, you know, drafting Kyle Pitts and Drake London in the first round and not using these guys. Don't trust Desmond Ridder at all. I think this would be a big Bijan Robinson game. I think he's going to find the end zone. CJ Stroud is now plus 175 to win Rookie of the Year. I'm a little hesitant to roll him out in DFS. I think he's going to be very popular. And with the Falcons playing at a slow pace, they like to play at a slow pace. They like to run the rock and chew the clock up a little bit. This is not going to change. So there could be fewer passing attempts for CJ Stroud. I do view him as a borderline top 15 quarterback this week. I would play him over Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy in super flex leagues, or if you're thinking in a single quarterback league, maybe you had Trevor Lawrence. You know, Trevor Lawrence certainly has a higher ceiling against the Bills, but I may lean with CJ Stroud over him if you had that scenario. But ultimately, I do like this Texans team. I like that the way that they're playing football, even on the road. I think it's going to be a close one, right? It's just a 1.5 spread or something like that. But wanted to give you guys a money line dog, and that is the one that I came up with. If I were to choose a second one, it would be the Rams. All right, so we have the under, Dallas and San Fran at 45, the under the Saints and the Pats at 39.5, and the under between the Jets and the Broncos at 43.5. I don't, even though this Denver defense is looked pathetic to start the season, and they've really played very poorly defensively. And on the other side, Russell Wilson's actually playing pretty good football. I mean, they're moving the rock, and he's hitting Cortland Sutton. He's having a good start. Jerry Jeudy healthy at the moment. They're moving the football around. It does sound like Javonte Williams may have a shot to play in this game. I'd be a little hesitant to roll him out. I don't have him as an RB2. He's more of a desperation flex play there. And if he doesn't play McLaughlin, I would feel a little bit better about playing him. But Jets, good defense. Zach Wilson coming off arguably his best game of his NFL career. He actually had more completions, more passing touchdowns, and more passing yards. Patrick Mahomes. It was the first time ever that's happened to Mahomes in an NFL start. But is that an outlier? It may be. It may be an outlier. I can't ask him to go in a mile high and put up a bunch of points at the under there. The moneyline parlay is San Fran, KC, Baltimore, and Buffalo at plus 408. And then the 7-point teaser here, we got Miami at -5. We have the Rams at plus 11. We have the Bengals at plus 4. I think it's a real possibility that Arizona could win that game at home. I have picked Cincinnati in my own pool at plus at just money line straight up. I think they're 3-point favorites here. I think they're going to win this game by a field goal. I just feel like there's going to be some desperation in that locker room, and they are the better squad. They're just not bringing it at the moment. But plus 4, are they going to lose by over a field goal here? I don't think so. And if they do, it is GG for the Cats. Detroit -3, the Saints +8, KC +3.5 against Minnesota. I've seen that line move. It was 5.5, now 3.5. I think Kansas City is going to win the game by a field goal, but +3.5 here. And then we have San Fran at +3.5, and that one pays 6-1 over at Bet365. Any more questions here before we get out of here? No problem there, Teabag. Anytime, man. Anytime. What's the worst for Pittsburgh? A hobbled Pickett or just Trubisky in general? I would say Trubisky's probably worse. I mean, he can't make the throws, and he would just run around. It's tough go for Pittsburgh. They can't move the ball. I like their defense, but they can't move the ball, and Baltimore getting healthier. A couple of weeks ago, they lost to the Colts, who are missing 8 starters in that game. OBJ sounds like he's going to play. Rashad Bateman sounds like he's going to play. So, yeah, I think Baltimore, even though it's a divisional game, weird things happen in the divisional games for sure. But I think Pittsburgh is going to lose that one at home. We got Lou here. Going to be an interesting DFS week. My two favorite lineups currently have Dobbs and Zachy, a boy, at quarterback. Wow. Okay. I was actually going to go through the DFS schedule. So let's do that on the way out for some people who give me some feedback that they like it. I just been rolling through quickly. What I will say is that we have a lot of amazing tools over at ftndaily.com. The guys will be with you if you are. Yes, the secondary is awful. It's atrocious. I like Watt and some of the guys that can get after the quarterback, but you're right, man. The secondary has not played good football at all. So even though Lamar kind of likes to tuck and run, there's been more design runs. I'm not feeling Bateman and OBJ in my lineups this week, but it is a good spot for maybe Lamar to air one out to a couple of those guys. Zay Flowers, we certainly like on this show. So some DFS thoughts here, but I will say, like I said, Optimizer, we have brand new Optimizer, ownership projections. We have the Discord channel. We have all kinds of tools like Pace of Play that will help you, construct some of your lineups as well. And the guys are with you, every Sunday and every Monday and Thursday as well, walking through their thoughts. And we've seen a lot of green screens, and I love to see it. So at the quarterback position, the guy that I would spend up for, I think Tua may be a little bit of a trap, although I do think that this is going to be a Jalen Waddle game. He's been very quiet to start the season, but I think up in this game, running the rock with DA and Raheem Mostert, I think for me, the quarterback that I would spend up on would be like Kirk Cousins against KC at 6'9", a lot of pass attempts. It's a pass happy offense. It's a high total game. People may be going to Mahomes up at the top, maybe having like Isaiah Pacheco, who is really trending up. That's another guy that I wanted to talk about, by the way. I like him to score at plus 118, and something we talked about in the offseason. I easily get sidetracked, so bear with me. Something we talked about the offseason with Pacheco is that he was going to be involved more through the air, because we saw him last year, 10 catches on 12 targets just so far. Actually, sorry. Last season, he had 13 catches. This year, he already has 10 catches on 12 targets. But 10 of his 13 catches last year came in the final 7 games. So it was a guy that was trending up, right? It was like a guy that had to, earn the snaps and touches, behind CEH and behind Jerick McKinnon. And here in year 2, understanding the playbook and what Andy Reid does with his running backs and, over the course of his career, and LaShawn McCoy and Brian Westbrook, Jamal Williams and Kareem Hunt, all those things. Pacheco's not on that same page. But Andy Reid finds a way to utilize these guys. And so the 13 catches last year, he's going to cruise past that, 10 in his final 7 games last year, and then 6 in the 3 playoff games as well. And his receiving yard prop is 14.5. That's another prop that I like. He's hit in 3 of his 4 games. So he's more healthier now. Remember, he missed a big chunk of training camp and preseason with the shoulder injury. Week 1, 8 carries, week 2, 12 carries, week 3, 15 carries, and last week, 20 carries, found the end zone and had over 100 yards. So a guy that's trending up in the offense. I would maybe do like a Pacheco and kind of bring it back with, you could still do a Pacheco and a Kelsey if you wanted in tournaments. It's not ideal in cash, but you can do something like Jefferson or Cousins and Jefferson or TJ Hawkinson to kind of bring it back that way. I have no problem with Hurts if you want to roll with Hurts at 8K, if you can find a way to squeeze him Mahomes at 8.2, but the quarterback that I'm kind of feeling and like hit him high, hit him low would be Kirk Cousins at 6'9". Quarterbacks that I'd like to spend down is Matthew Stafford at 5'6". Talked about him earlier in the show, leading the NFL in passing attempts, before week 5 got underway, right there in terms of passing yards, 3-1. He's got, it's tough for me to say quickly, 3 300-yard games already. Mac Jones over 300 yards, Sam Howell 290. Kirk Cousins 364. Eagles struggling. The secondary's got some issues. So at 5'6", and Dobbs at 5'2", Lou, I don't hate that, right? Like Dobbs has been pretty good. I mean, look at the game log, real good, right? Last week against San Fran, 23 fantasy points, 17 against the Cowboys. Those are 2 legit defenses. 17 and 23. He had 25 against the Giants. It was a bad week 1 where he really struggled, of course, but he has been good. He's been running. The rushing yards, 41 in week 2, 55 in week 3, 48 last week as well, like Michael Wilson. So it's an interesting little stack there. And the Bengals, they haven't showed us a whole lot. So I definitely dig those 2 quarterbacks, but I like if you can find $400 more with Matthew Stafford, that's where I'm at. For running backs, I'm going to stay clear of Saquon Barkley. You know, there's a case for him in tournaments, maybe potential low ownership, but definitely a fade for me in cash. The running back that I want to spend up for is Bijan Robinson. You know, we've seen him over the past couple of weeks playing 70% of the snaps, 19 carries, 124 yards. Last week, 14 carries, 105 yards. He's had at least 4 catches in every single game, and he's caught basically everything thrown his way. He's got 22 targets, and he has 19 grabs. I just need to find a way to get him the ball a little bit more, but I really like the Ritter. So no confidence throwing the ball down the field. So it's like some check downs and some just like quick screens and finding a way to get the ball in his hands. And Algier has been living in the 20 to 40% snap range over the past couple of weeks. So Bijan, and what we know about the Texans, you know, over the last 3 years, is a defense that really does struggle to stop the run. D'Amico Ryan's doing a good job with this team. Really good job, right? They're competitive. They got a franchise quarterback. The defense hasn't been as awful, a little bit better through the air than on the ground, but Bijan Robinson there at 7-7 is certainly somebody that I like as well. And then Dave Montgomery, who I do believe will come with a little bit of chalk at 6-6, but we gave our reasons earlier in the show and why we liked his prop and why we like Detroit here. Kamara at 6-3, like those catches will rack up, but I do like just $300 a little bit more on Ingram. DA, Miami, he will come with a high ownership, him and Mostert at 6-2. And a Chan at 6-1. I would lean with a Chan. In fact, like they're both probably going to come with a lot of ownership, and I would say that Mostert is probably the one with the lower ownership. So there's something to be said about that as a sneaky play. It won't be sneaky, but maybe a little bit ownership because I think the chalk will be with DA there. Like Pacheco at 5-7 against Minnesota, who leads the NFL in turnovers with 11. So, you know, a couple turnovers potentially. If KC can force a couple, put Pacheco inside a good spot. He's top 10 in red zone rushing attempts and inside the 5 and inside the 10 as well. He's getting some carries there. And as I mentioned, McKinnon is kind of like taking a bit of a backseat. Continuing to move down the board, I think Breece Hall is a tournament play only, not a cash play. But of course, you know, hearing reports that Robert Saleh has taken off the training wheels will bump up his ownership. But I mean, he's only had double-digit carries in 2 of his 4 games, 6 for 56 last week. I mean, the explosiveness was on full display in week 1 when he had 10 carries and 127 yards. And he's starting to get more involved. He's got at least 2 targets in 4 straight games. Last week, he caught 3 of the 4 targets that came his way. The Broncos have been the worst team. I mean, they've allowed the most rushing yards, and they've allowed 7 rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks as well. So if they do give him a full workload, and Dalvin Cook looks pretty dust at this point, Hall could return value there at 5-4. Continuing to move down the board, Sanders is a fade. Delvin Cook's a fade. Gus Edwards, I'm not getting involved with any Ravens running backs. McLaughlin, I'm not interested at all. If Javonte, even if Javonte doesn't play, I'm not totally interested in that play. And, you know, just continuing to move down here, there's not a big running back that, you know, I like in terms of spending down. Usually like hit them high and hit them low. There's nothing here that I like, and I'm not just going to give you guys a play for the sake of giving you a play. I think, you know, if you're playing 150 lineups, maybe one with Algier, we could see maybe a rushing touchdown or 2 in that game. P run at 4.8 if there's no Javonte, but I'm not doing it. I think the cheapest running back that I would spend on would be Breece Hall at 5-4. Over at the wide receiver position up at the top, JJ is 9-4, Tyreek Hill is 9K. I really like AJ Brown. We gave the reasons earlier in this show. Target percentage, air yards, bunch of work for the past couple of weeks. Grades out well. Wide receiver cornerback matchup tool at 8K. Jamar Chase at 7-9 is okay. Puka Nacua, you know, the ownership may come down with Kupp there at 8-6 and expected to play at 7-7. I talked about it like it's Stafford and company that I think they're going to light up the secondary for Philadelphia. I would rather Jalen Waddle than Tyreek Hill. You know, Waddle's been very quiet. We got some young corners in New York, and we have Waddle with just 4 catches in each of his first 3 games, 78 yards, 86 yards, 46 yards. Like he has an extremely high ceiling. He's yet to find the end zone. It's time. I think it's going to be a Jalen Waddle game, and, you know, having Tua and Waddle maybe will kind of be a little bit of leverage on the field, who may roll with the both running backs there in Miami. Chris Olave, not into it. Pittman's okay at 6-4. Not into any of the pass catchers in the Jets and the Broncos game. I like the under there in that game. Nico Collins at 5-6. I mean, he's just really hard to ignore what he's been doing to start the season. Our guy Zay Flowers at 5-5 is pretty good. Jordan Addison in tournaments, like coming off a game where he had 0, and then a game in KC where we have like a 50 some odd point total here and some points. I think he'll have a bounce back performance. George Pickens at 5'2", just there's not a lot of bodies there at the moment, but I would rather have a Hollywood Brown at 5K. I'd rather go that way. Drake London, just don't really see the ceiling there. Tyler Boyd at 4.5 is interesting, and T. Higgins sits out. He's a decent little value there at 4.5. You're playing multiple tournaments, maybe a Sky Moore in your lineup because he's done. It's just a tournament play, like light your money on fire and cash play. You're not doing anything like that. Jameson Williams, maybe one of like 15 lineups is a deep threat guy, and if he is going to catch a pass or two, he'll rack up like 40 plus yards because that's how he's going to get used. Jefferson takes a bit of a back seat here, with the addition of Cooper Kupp. Michael Wilson at 3.7, right? We love that play. I would maybe be interested in Terrace Marshall if Mingo didn't play, but ultimately I don't think Carolina will be able to move the football. And then we go over to the tight end position here. Kelsey's up at the top at 7.6. I like Hawkinson at 6.5, a touch more. He's averaging the same as Kelsey at 14 fantasy points per game. A ton of catches, a ton of targets. Guy we projected for 100 grabs this season. Continuing to move on, like Sam Laporta, we'll like him a lot more if there's no Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though they'll run the football there, but certainly like Amon-Ra. Goddard would be like a tournament play only if you were playing multiple lineups because he hasn't done a whole lot. But I like Higbee at 4.1 as well at 8.9 against that Eagles secondary. I was going to say Ferguson, but of course he is not here with the primetime game. Your spend down option at tight end. Man, I don't really. You're hoping for a touchdown. Wiley Cox worked out well last week. I'm not seeing anything I like. Jonnu Smith at 2.9 is jokes. I mean, he's had the much better season so far than Kyle Pitts. I didn't even look. Like, is he more expensive than Kyle Pitts? No, he's not, at 3.3. Jonnu Smith at 2.9. Like, if you're following trends, Jonnu Smith is the guy that's getting the work. Jonnu Smith, if you look at his game log, his last 3 games, 6 targets, 4 grabs, 8 targets, 5 grabs, 6 targets, 6 grabs, 95 yards last week. He is the better fantasy option at this moment than Kyle Pitts. So I think he's more skilled than Kyle Pitts? No, absolutely not. There's no way in hell I think that. But hey, if we're following trends, that's what it's all about. Yeah, no Amon-Ra again at practice. Hasn't been ruled out. I don't think he'll play either. 16_50. Great name. We talked about this yesterday on the show. Deesh had a question about Amon-Ra St. Brown versus DJ Moore. We said play DJ Moore because Amon-Ra very questionable to play. I think you need to start thinking about some backup options. Him not being 100% and not practicing in the last week, he didn't really practice either, but being 10-point favorites and having Jameson Williams come back, I think they can afford to sit him out. So Sam Laporta, uptick. Josh Reynolds, certainly an uptick. Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe now. Certainly you feel better about him as a low-end RB2 or a flex play, catching a couple passes out of the backfield as well. I think people out there should find a new option for Amon-Ra, and hopefully you have Michael Wilson to help you out there. We're going to get out of here, guys. Really do appreciate it. Here's the baseball stuff on the way out. So we went perfect. This stuff is no, that's not the one we had. Let's get the updated version. We did have a successful wildcard round. These things won't carry over. We're not going to go perfect here. I actually have some chalk picks, unfortunately. I like the Texans over Houston. It was nice to see them end that, 21 straight playoff losses. They took care of the Bluebirds pretty easily. I know there's a lot going on in Toronto at the moment. There's going to see a lot of changes with the Blue Jays. A lot has been made about Barrios being taken out of that game. An analytical thing there from Schneider and company did not work out in their favor. But the Texans the Astros are just, man, do I want them to lose? Yeah, of course. I want Texas to win this series. But Houston just trumps them everywhere, right? They trump them in pitching. They trump them in the lineup there across the board. The extra rest that I think that they needed, they fell into winning this division despite really not leading it at any moment. They had led it for a little bit, but it was Texas really all year long, and Seattle jumped in there. But Houston, their lineup, there's really no holes in their lineup. Verlander back. And Framber Valdez has been unbelievable in the last couple of postseasons. And you know what? Christian Javier has been much better over the last couple of starts than he was to start the season. He had like a double-digit strikeout performance. So, yeah, in my heart, I'm rooting for Minnesota, but we're trying to give some winners here. And I do like Houston to win this series. And on the other side, I talked about Baltimore going to the World Series. I'm going to come off of this a little bit. I had Baltimore and Atlanta in the World Series, and I talked about a long shot with the Phillies at 13-1 last week. If you're looking for a long shot, I've kind of changed my tune just a touch in both of these series, and I thought we would see this matchup. I think Texas is going to upset Baltimore. I think Baltimore, I have some questions about their staff, even though like Bradish's pitch really good and Grayson's pitch really good. You know, the bullpen's been better. I'd say Texas has the worst bullpen of all the remaining teams. But I don't know. I'm feeling this Rangers team and the way that they played baseball over the last little bit. I think this is going to be a hell of a series. It should be highly entertaining. The O's are for real. They're legit, like over 100 wins. They certainly are. A lot of come from behind wins. I think, you know, Texas may not have the edge in terms of the rotation and the bullpen, but I'm really feeling some of the bats lately. You know, playing playoff baseball over the last little bit, you know, hitting their stride at the moment. Josh Young, you know, back in the lineup. It's a heck of a player. I think we would have had the AL Rookie of the Year if he didn't get hurt. You know, he had like a bunch of extra base hits in that game clutching number 2 game in Tampa Bay. I'm feeling Texas here to pull off the upset. I don't think Arizona will. You know, I said earlier that they're one of the best kept secrets in baseball, a sneaky good offense, a really good team. Not shocked that they made quick work of the Brewers, but ultimately the experience here with the Dodgers, the bullpen that they have, the pieces in the rotation have been up and down this year, but I still like them. And there's just not a lot of holes either in their lineup. If I was to say like, no, I'm not even gonna do it. I'm just going with the Dodgers. And, you know, Freeman, arguably one of the best seasons ever for a first baseman, and Mookie Betts and the pieces that they have in their lineup. I'm going to take the Dodgers here, but I think this series will go the distance. Like, I think Houston will make quick work of Minnesota. I think Texas and Baltimore, I could certainly see that series going the distance. Arizona and LA going the distance. And I also see Philadelphia and Atlanta going the distance. And it is extremely hard to go against the Braves. We had them as NL East champs. We talked about the World Series. We had Strider lead the bigs and strikeouts. We had Ronald Acuna Jr. to win MVP. These are things we have on the tracker. But I am feeling Philadelphia here at this moment. I am not a Philadelphia Phillies fan. That's not me. I woke up this morning feeling like a loser. That's why I'm wearing the Trout and Ohtani t-shirt. This is me here. I am that kind of guy. But I am feeling the Phillies. They went to the World Series last year. They're a team that can go toe-to-toe with the Atlanta Braves offensively. Yes, I like the Braves lineup more. Definitely like their lineup more. But the Phillies, you know, with the addition of Trey Turner and Schwarber and Stott, and the way that they're playing baseball at home with 2 losses at home over the last couple of years in the postseason, I think this is going to be an unbelievable series. It should be super fun, highly entertaining. But I'm going to go the other way in what is an upset. And Philadelphia, the 13-1, if you tailed that for them to win the World Series, of course, we talked about it. They're going to have to go through Atlanta. They're going to have to go through the Dodgers and then a really good opponent in the AL. But the Phillies are plus 145 over at DraftKings. Texas is minus 105. Slight favorites? Did that change? Wow. Anyways, Texas minus 105, Houston at minus 160, and we have the Phillies at plus 145 and the Dodgers at minus 215. You could do a 2-leg parlay here with the Astros and the Dodgers to both win their series at plus 138 if you're not really feeling me on the other 2 upsets there, Texas and the Philadelphia Phillies. Man, playing good ball. Phillies are playing really good ball. And Zach Wheeler, man, this guy gets it done in the playoffs. He gets it done. Arizona has some really good young pieces. Man, do they ever, right? They should be good for a while. Yeah, they stole Marino and Gurriel from the Blue Jays. That was a great trade. I love Walker, Thomas, yeah, Marte, and of course Corbin, right? Corbin's been great for sure. He's been awesome. Last one, Flowers or Pickens. It will be Flowers for me, just because of the Steelers secondary. And even though the guys are coming back, for Baltimore, I would lean with just the more capable offense and quarterback at this moment. There could be, 7 or 8 targets for Pickens. Like there were 7 targets last week for Pickens, but he didn't do anything. I have Pickens in my own league, and I am playing. It sounds like I'm going to play Christian Watson over him. We'll see. I need to hear some positive news about him. Last week, someone offered me DJ Moore for Christian Watson straight up. Hopefully, I don't regret it. Wait. Oh, so you didn't take it? Offered DJ Moore for Christian Watson straight up. Hopefully, don't. Dude, I think you're gonna regret that one. I think you're going to regret that one. But Watson still, I still believe in him, right? He's still a guy that I think could rack up 6 or 7 touchdowns, be the lead option there for Jordan Love, who's been okay. The completion percentage is not great for Love, but, he's had, 19 fantasy points in every game, maybe every game but one. But yeah, must be an uneasy feeling there for sure. Final question there. Oh, this is a good one. I would do, my gut says Wilson just because of the offense and the play calling and what McDaniel does, coming from Shanahan, and what he did right away was bring over a former 49er that he was comfortable with, bring over another former 49er that he's comfortable with, and Raheem Mostert. But it's going to be tough for him to find touches. Like, I know Raheem hasn't stayed healthy, and you got a rookie there in DA, but I think I would lean with Keaton Mitchell, the unknown Keaton Mitchell, right? Who's dealing with the injury and on IR, coming back, and with Baltimore, like, I don't really believe in Gus Edwards. Like, he's getting carries, but he's not doing much with them. And I think they kind of like tip their hand when he's on the field, because he's not going to really catch a lot of passes. I don't believe in Justice Hill. Melvin Gordon's been active in getting some touches there. So I think there will be an opportunity here for Mitchell. I think he's the better stash, but I do believe both guys are good stashes. My gut said Wilson because of the offense, the play calling, and what they've done with running backs. But I'm going to go with Mitchell here. Keaton Mitchell would be the call for me. Any other questions, guys, before we get out of here? I don't like to, believe it or not, I don't like to toot my own horn. But we do have the FTN betting package, which is the early bird for NHL and NBA, which is $199 for the season. You can use promo code Meaney, save yourself a little bit of cash. Before we had like $50 a month, but you're going to get all the NHL picks. NBA are going to be in the Discord every single day, walking through my picks. And I understand if this is a steep price to pay, I'm still going to be here with you guys on Mean Streets and Dango Betselli, giving some hockey picks and some shot props and things like that. But we have had a successful 3 years over at FTN Bet since we've launched in the NHL, 265 units, over 100 in year 1 and year 2. And there's certainly an adjustment period for me. Books adjusted. We had to think outside the box and go another way with some of these props. And we'll be with you guys. Tuesday is puck drop. A friendly reminder that the NHL guide is free and it's available over at ftnfantasy.com. If you're going to be doing any hockey drafting, I'm going to be doing a live high stakes draft over at NFC this Saturday at 9 Eastern. I'm going to walk through my thoughts and process, and we'll have some promo codes. I'm told NFC will give me a couple of promo codes for those that would like to maybe draft on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday in the afternoon before the NHL season officially gets underway. I appreciate you, man, and the comment and hanging out. I love seeing some new people in here. Everybody seems super sharp, right? We're trying to have some fun, create a distraction. I told George I was going to go like 25 minutes, but I love people coming in here, asking some questions. And, clearly you are knowledgeable, and a lot of people that have hung out with me are really knowledgeable as well. And we're just trying to have some fun here and win some fantasy ships, put a couple extra bucks in your pocket with some props and some picks and some DFS plays, but ultimately like a little bit of a distraction here from the crazy world that we live in. Mitchell and Locke, we call him McLovin, I guess, on the show. McLaughlin looking like the next A-Chain in the making. Again, A-Chain, a Chan. My goodness. I don't know if I'd go that far, but because John looks absolutely amazing, but man, McLaughlin ran really hard last week, didn't he? Right? Catch and runs. McLovin, I got that from you, Kyle. But some nice catch and runs from him. Looked explosive. So yeah, he's a guy that I don't know if we'll ever feel good starting him. It's like a 3-headed monster now, but he's certainly worthy of a spot to pick up. And Mitchell, I really like as a player. I think he's got a bit of a higher ceiling there in the McLaughlin. Carr is supposed to play for New Orleans. Just bet Kamara 7 receptions at plus 450. It's Carr, hoping it's Carr, not Jameis. That's a really good ladder. We talked about Puka Nacua in week 2. I think we hit like a 9-1 for him to have 9 catches in week 2. Alvin Kamara coming off the 13 catches, 14 targets. I dig it. Once I'm done here, I'm going to immediately put in the tracker at 4.5. I did see that it was plus 425, and now it's like minus 105. I think it's going to be Carr. He definitely didn't look healthy last week, but you know what? If it's Jameis, that's okay. I think it's fine. Jameis has shown us that he can check down as well. If he doesn't see his first, second read, he may panic and look to Alvin Kamara. So 7 catches, a little ladder there at plus 450. I dig it. It's a fun little play there. We like laddering. And I think you could do the same with DA of Miami. A little bit of a ladder, 50 yards, 75, 100, maybe a buck 50. I don't know if he's going to continue to do this, but it is the Giants after all. All right. I see more people popping in here. George, thanks. Getting that up there for me. Subscribe, hit the like button, tell a friend, or Meaney will find you. I'll find you. I'll find you on the hockey rink. Puck drop tonight. I'm excited. Can't wait to play some beer league hockey. I'm gonna have some bats, play some hockey, rip a couple pucks high off the glass, and not back check at all because I'm completely out of shape. It's been a fun summer. A lot of bats and golf, and need some hockey. Okay, this is good. I don't know who's available on your waiver wire. So Isaiah Rodriguez here coming in with the question: Amon-Ra St. Brown potentially being out. Who do I get? I would need to know who's on your waiver wire to give you a little bit of a better feel. But I think guys in my head that could be available. I'd start with Michael Wilson for the Arizona Cardinals. I would go next to maybe Wan'Dale Robinson of the New York Giants, who could be hanging out there for you. I would actually lean with Josh Reynolds over Wan'Dale Robinson. Maybe he was dropped. Like I think he had a donut in the last game, or he had a 2-touchdown game, and then he put up a big stinker. So a Funyun from Lil Wayne. I would say I would start with Josh Reynolds. Yeah, that's a good one too. We talked about him yesterday. Rashee Rice might be available. We talked about dropping Sky Moore for Rashee Rice. I mean, Sky Moore, he's out there. He's just a Beetlejuice. Do we have that one? What are you doing? Who, me? Huh? Nothing? Just hanging around. Just hanging around out there doing nothing. That's Sky Moore at the moment and MVS. Rashee Rice is at least getting targets. I mean, Mahomes hasn't been that great to start the season. I'll tell you firsthand. I mean, I heard him say it on the press conference. It's like he hasn't played good football. And in week one, there was a couple wide open throws there to Sky Moore. I know like Kadarius dropped a bunch of balls, but Sky Moore would have had a few yards in that game if Mahomes didn't overthrow him. But Rashee Rice is a guy that they drafted. Mahomes wanted him. They worked out. Rashee Rice is certainly trending up. I love the call there, T-Bag. And not only is he trending up and getting some targets, he's getting some red zone targets. You got it there?
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Fighting us?
That is not only Sky Moore, it's Brendan Cooks. When I saw Brendan Cooks led the Cowboys receivers with 90% of the snaps last week, I said, what the F is that guy even doing out there? Brendan Cooks has 8 catches for 66 yards. I told Jake I would drop him for Michael Gallup, who's trending up, and Gallup was turning into Dak's favorite target before he blew out his knee. And last year, recovering from the injury, didn't see a whole lot from him. Bringing in Brendan Cooks, I thought was a good move. They clearly needed somebody opposite of CeeDee Lamb. That playoff game last year against the Niners was this CD. I mean, Ferguson is a borderline top 5 tight end. He leads the NFL in red zone targets and red zone catches. He's playing Dalton Schultz's role, but Brendan Cooks is just out there hanging around. Watch him have a big game here, but I wouldn't be rostering Brendan Cooks. I wouldn't be playing him. I'm not saying to play Michael Gallup, but I would flip flop them. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong on that one, but there you go. These are guys that are available in your league. Awesome. I would start here with man. All of these guys should be rostered. You're probably playing in a shallower league here. I would pick up. I think I would lean with Hollywood. I mean, Adam Thielen's been really good. According to our DVOA tools, the Lions have been the best team against slot wide receivers. And Branch, safety that they drafted this year, corner safety, man, really good player. Going to be on Thielen. So I think I would lean with Hollywood here. Let me give you our projections to split the tie. Why not? You're hanging out with us here. Let's give some projections. It'll take me a minute just to bring this up here on the fly. I would say that our projections probably have Hollywood first. I mean, Jacoby's in a decent spot too. And Jimmy G is just really throwing the football to 2 guys. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is not a factor at all. We are seeing the ball get thrown to Devontae Adams, who leads the NFL in target share and air yard share and air yards in general. He's getting a ton of work. But Jacoby's gotten some too. So I just want to give you the projections. You're here, you're hanging out. This is what we're all about, kind of giving you a sneak peek over at ftnfantasy.com. Let's see if I am wrong. And I know that my rankings have Hollywood a touch ahead of Thielen. And Thielen, I mean, it's easy to say, wow. I mean, he's been so good over the past few weeks, got a lot of targets. I mean, he was definitely really good with Andy Dalton there, but we'll see. Yes, we have Hollywood Brown for 10.8 fantasy points. We have him for 5 grabs and 61.3 receiving yards on 8.5 targets. We have Adam Thielen for 10.1 fantasy points. So again, we're splitting hairs here. But we have him for 5.1 grabs and 56.4 receiving yards. We have Jacoby Myers for 9.9 fantasy points, 4.8 catches and 55 receiving yards. And we have Tank Dell in there at 53.9. So we have all these guys as borderline top 35 wide receivers, but I lean with Hollywood there, Isaiah. League's not deep enough, I don't think, for the Rashee Rice, Michael Wilsons of the world. And there we go. One more, I guess. One more. I mean, I'm still here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Wilson or Zay Flowers in a guillotine league if Amon-Ra St. Brown plays. Love these guillotine leagues. So you just want to shoot for some floor, right? You want to have some floor guys that you just don't want to put up zeros. Yeah, I would go with Zay. As much as I like Michael Wilson, it's like he's still a rookie after all. He's coming off his best game. You know, these things sometimes happen where it looks like they're trending up and then all of a sudden there's a quiet game and what the heck happened to go from the most added to the most dropped. I would be patient with Michael Wilson. I love him. I love this guy as a player. He's actually one of my favorite players in the draft, believe it or not. But I would go with Zay Flowers here against the Steelers. And our projections, I don't even really have to double check, but our projections would certainly say Zay Flowers over. We have Rashee Rice a little bit high too. 10.1 for Zay Flowers and for Michael Wilson. I know that I was the highest on Michael Wilson in our rankings or at FTN Fantasy. Yeah, we have him for 8 fantasy points. So I think it's pretty good there. Questions keep coming, I guess. Christian Kirk or Tutu Atwell based off matchup, full PPR. I'd lean with Kirk. Tough spot. It is a tough spot against the Bills. They lost White last week. But I would lean Kirk. I mean, he's shown me a whole lot over the past couple weeks. And Tutu's played really well, but the addition of Cooper Kupp, right? So based on matchup, I mean, I really do like Stafford. Talked about the Eagles struggling against bunch formations and guys in motion, with the Rams do really, really well. But I would lean with Kirk, and I'll give you the projection since I'm doing it for everybody else. Kirk is at 10.7 fantasy points, 5 grabs, and 58 receiving yards. And Tutu Atwell, we have at 9.3 fantasy points, so a touch lower there. This one, I may be alone on this, but I am done with Darren Waller. Like, I don't even have any Darren Waller shares. Like, this guy, people are talking about him as tight end 2, tight end 3, 100 grabs. I mean, I think Darren Waller is a really good tight end. He's over 30 now. Back-to-back seasons not being able to stay healthy. The offensive line is just so pathetic in New York that it's really tough for Daniel Jones to get him the ball. What I am seeing here in Dallas is Ferguson is playing that Dalton Schultz role, and Schultz was a top 5 tight end when he was healthy, and in fantasy points per game in the last 2 years, he was good. Ferguson, number 1 among tight ends in targets, number 1 among tight ends in catches, getting usage in the red zone. I saw Scott Spratt write about him this week and say he wouldn't be shocked if Ferguson led the NFL among tight ends in touchdowns. I would be, but I am rolling out Ferguson in this spot. And if Waller has a big game, Waller has a big game. But it's the track record. This is happening. It's against the Niners. I get it. I understand that. But Dak is leaning on Ferguson. So if I could spell his name right, I can get you you could look it up yourself. I mean, you're seeing it, right? You're seeing it firsthand. Jake, you're seeing the targets. 7. He's got 3 games with 7 targets. Caught all 7 of them last week for 77 yards. The usage in the red zone, absolutely. Love it. The other one here, also Javonte is healthy. Do I drop Zay Jones or Josh Downs to keep McLaughlin? Yeah, I would drop Josh Downs. You have Javonte. I have a lot of Javonte too. You know, I talked him up a lot on the show, so that's certainly my bad. But Javonte, I would definitely keep Javonte, but I would drop Josh Downs. Josh Downs has shown me a little bit more than Alex Pierce, but Pierce is playing more than him in terms of snaps, and Zay Jones is linked to a good quarterback. I mean, both of those guys I don't really care for, to be honest with you. So either one of them, but I think there's a higher ceiling there with Zay Jones. Amari Cooper on bye. I would buy him because he's on bye, and he's a good buy low candidate for me. Who should I flex this week? Michael Wilson, Michael Thomas, Atwell, or McLaughlin? My gut tells me Michael Wilson. Like, I'm just feeling Michael Wilson. I'm just in. I just like him. So Michael Thomas against the Pats, Atwell against the Eagles. I think you can afford to wait this one out. If there's no Javonte, you go McLaughlin. If Javonte does play, I would go Michael Thomas there. Or I would go Michael Wilson there. Glad I drafted Ferg in 14 team league. Yeah, Giants are killing me. I understand it, dude. But yeah, good pick. Great pick. You got yourself what I think is a top 10 tight end the rest of the way. I really do believe that. KJ in the house. Thanks. Buffalo defense is good, especially against slot receivers, but Kirk does get volume. Eagles pass defense is suspect. You're telling me it's suspect. Desai has really struggled so far. They've allowed Mac Jones had over 300, Cousins had over 300, Sam Howell had 290. And again, they struggle against bunch formations and guys in motion, and the Rams do both of those things a lot and very, very well. So I get maybe you wanted to roll a 2-2 there. I understand it, but Kupp coming back, I'm a little hesitant. The Bills are, I think, even with losing White, I think they're probably just a touch behind the Niners and maybe the Cowboys, but they're right there. Elite squad. You saw what they did to Miami last week. But I would just go with Kirk. I mean, just what he's doing lately. And they move him around. They've been moving around a little bit there. Chandler in the house, trade away Kenny Gainwell and Komet for Breece Hall, and other RB is Pollard, Etienne, and Connor and tight ends kill. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Love that. You're getting a better back. It's a little bit of a risky play, but I would. Komet's good. We like Komet. Hey, George, you got a Cole Komet, buddy. Last year to start, zeros to start, but we looked like we were given a loser draft pick. But if you hung on to him, he definitely helped you win some championships, hopefully. And even in a tough spot, the Washington Commanders are the best defense in football against tight ends, and he was able to find the end zone and rack up a couple catches there for you. But you don't need two tight ends. You got Kittle. So you just roll out Kittle, and you definitely have an upgrade there over Kenneth Gainwell. By the way, who do you think has a higher ceiling rest of the season, Ferguson or Musgrave? I think Ferguson. Just had to drop Musgrave to get Kupp out of IR. I think Ferguson. I like Musgrave. We're talking this season. We're not talking rookie. We're not talking dynasty. Musgrave's done some good things at the start of the season, some great things, right? But Dobbs wasn't 100%. You got a rookie in Reed, and Christian Watson wasn't 100%. So I would go with Ferguson. In what is a better offense? I think both are kind of run first, but Ferguson, I would lean with that. No worries. We got two more, and then we're going to bounce. I'm planning to start Stroud over T-Law this week. Bold move. It is a bold move, but I did talk about it earlier in the show. I don't know if you saw that. I did say that I would play him over like Dak and over Purdy. It's a bold move. The ceiling is higher with Trevor Lawrence, and I know you know that. But the Jags lead the NFL in drops. Trevor Lawrence hasn't shown us a whole lot. Calvin Ridley leads the NFL in drops. It's the Bills after all. And really, even though they blew out Atlanta last week, I think that was just Ritter turning the ball over. I don't think, that offense didn't really show me a whole lot. The one thing I will say about Stroud is that the Falcons, it's a decent defense. It's an underrated defense, and they play at a slow pace. And I think this will be like the clock. Like with Falcons games, I just feel like when I'm watching all the football games, Falcons wins over first. It's like, oh yeah, they just ran the ball the whole time. But Stroud, 3 straight 20 fantasy point games. It's a pass happy offense. He looks great, man. He has no picks yet. Completion percentage is solid. It's a bold move. I think, if you're shooting for upside and you're shooting for that 30-point performance, T-Law is your guy. But Stroud may be a little bit safer at this point. If Javonte sits, Stevenson or McLovin, I would go with Stevenson. I'm still there on Stevenson. I think there's been a couple outlier games there with Zeke, but I would roll with Ramondre because it's a full point PPR league. I think he's doing enough catching some passes out of the backfield. So it's pretty close there, Kyle, but that's where I'm at. Brzee in the house, we're just leaving. We've gone very, very long. I got to wrap up a couple things over at FTN Bets, FTN Fantasy. So we're just getting out of here, Brzee, but appreciate you. Smash the like button. Got any comments, any questions, you guys can leave them there. I'll circle back on the video here. You're watching on iTunes and Spotify. Maybe do me a solid, rate, review, subscribe. We'll be with you guys. We'll have some guests. I promise we'll get a couple guests here. The show has been flexible now on Mean Street, so we'll get some guests and we'll get some different takes because you guys now are pretty much aware of all the guys that I'm really feeling. So we'll get some different takes and new blood. We'll reach outside and we got some connections here. So if you missed yesterday's episode, these are the starts. These are the guys. You can go back. The analysis is there. And then these are the guys that I'm not really feeling this week. These are the players I would check in on to buy. I would buy these guys, and these are the players I am not really feeling. And I understand it's a bad time to trade T-Law and Joe Burrow, but if you go look at their schedule, especially near the playoffs, and Joe Burrow out of the bye, I think he's got like San Fran and then really another Buffalo maybe. There's some tough spots for Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, and we are in it to win. So we do need to look ahead just a touch at the playoff schedule and look when we're buying at 14 and stuff. So yeah, we'll hear you tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. Have a good luck this week with your fantasy lineups, your picks, your props. We will be on Sirius XM channel 87 tomorrow with the FTN Fantasy Show from 9 to 11 Eastern. Myself, Jake Seeley, and Lauren Carpenter. Hopefully we help you there, and we have some more news on some of these guys that are questionable. So from George, helping me out as always. Appreciate you guys. Have a great Friday night. Have a few pops for me. We'll talk to you on Tuesday with Monday being Canadian Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to my Canadian family. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll talk some waiver wire stuff. And guess what? It's opening night in the NHL. Let's go. Cheers.